All right, so time for another pop quiz. Julie, Harry Potter or Star Wars?
Oh, Harry Potter, always, all the time.
I'm with you. I'm a huge Harry Potter fan.
Yeah, I like the original Star Wars, like the first three, but then all the prequels and all the things after, it was too much. So I'm just with Harry Potter.
Welcome to the Renew podcast presented by RentSpree. I am Lauren Martin, and I'm extremely honored and excited about the opportunity to host and conduct meaningful conversations with some of the top female voices in the real estate industry. In this episode, I will be talking to Julie Davis, the Chief Relationship Officer at Realtracs, the largest MLS in Tennessee, with reach into Alabama, Georgia, and Kentucky. We'll be discussing her professional real estate journey, as well as what she sees are still the biggest issues facing women who work in the real estate industry. Julie, welcome, and thank you so much for taking the time to come on the Renew podcast.
Lauren, thank you so much for having me. It truly is an honor and a privilege to be a part of the show and what you guys are doing with the Renew initiative, and I'm just very excited to be here.
Oh my gosh. Well, I am so excited for you to share your story. I think that you are so inspirational, and I just can't wait for people to listen to this.
Thank you. I'm excited to share.
Oh, sorry. The first question that I have for you is, can you just tell us a little bit about your real estate journey and kind of where you got to where you are today?
Sure. So I have been in the real estate industry since I graduated from college. I moved to Nashville. That's where I am, and got my first job working for what was at the time the Greater Nashville Association of Realtors. Now they're just Greater Nashville Realtors. And while I was there, I held many positions in the 17 years I was there, but the majority of the time I spent working in communications for them. And when I left Greater Nashville Realtors in 2018, I was their communications director.
That's awesome. What stands out to you as some of the keys to your success to how you got to where you are today?
Oh, there are so many. When I moved to Nashville and I took the job with Greater Nashville, I was really young. Like, it was my first job out of college. And so, like I said, I was really young, but I looked even younger than what I was, which is great now, 20 something years down the road. But when you're starting out in an industry, especially in real estate, being young itself can be a challenge. And so many of the realtors that I was encountering, they had been in the industry for a very long time. Some of them, this was even their second career they were starting. So for me, trying to find a way to feel confident and to be seen as professional and capable was really challenging in the industry. But to overcome that, and this is where the keys to success came in, like, I had to be willing just to take action, and I had to act on the belief that others had in me when I didn't have that belief in myself. And I had to surround myself with people who would teach me and who would encourage me. And so in my early years, I was constantly running my ideas and my work past others because I wanted their affirmation. I wanted their encouragement. And so having someone else speak into what you're working on, not only helps you to make sure you're on the right track, but it really also just provides you with that boost of confidence that you need to start being successful.
I love that. There's so many things to unpack there. First and foremost, I totally get it. Being young looking is a good thing, but at the same time, I get that all the time too. Like, I went to, I don't know, my mom was making like beef bourguignon or something. She's like, can you stop by the store and just pick up this like bottle of wine? And they're like bending my card every which way and the other. I'm like, I'm about to be like well past 21 years old. I can guarantee you it's like a tiny little bottle of wine. So I totally get that, but it does come in handy, I guess, some other times.
Yeah. Now, like I said, 20 years later, I don't mind being thought of as younger, but when you start out, it's kind of tough.
Yeah. And I love what you said about just leaning on the people around you. I think that that's so important. And I think it speaks to, your longevity at that company, because a lot of the times you want to be surrounded with not only knowledgeable people, but people who want to share that knowledge with you. And in real estate in particular, there's so many nuances and so many different regulations and rules and guidelines that surrounding yourself with people who want to pass that on to you, I think is really important.
It is. It is. And just someone who will help you figure out what all the acronyms are, because there are so
Yes.
many acronyms in real estate.
Especially when you get to some of the MLS names and stuff. I'm not sure if you're familiar with like Leo Pareja, but back when I worked at Remine, I would just really butcher some of the MLS names, and he'd be like, no, don't say that in person. That's not what it is. And I've been in the industry for quite some time and I'm still learning.
Yes,
So
always.
do you think that moving into the role that you have today, is that something that was so valuable to you in your career early on? Is that something that you really try to pass on to the others starting out in your industry today, the people in your organization?
Like passing on just that knowledge and oh, absolutely. Yes. In fact, when I came on at Realtracs in 2018, it was funny. I had 3 different titles in 3 different offices within like 6 months. It's a crazy story how I came to Realtracs. But one of the first things that someone there gave me was like an MLS glossary of like terms, which was really great because even though I had worked in the trade association side of real estate for so long, the MLS world has a million words and meetings and all these things that I had no idea about. So she gave me that little cheat sheet, and she's no longer with our company, but I have held on to that cheat sheet and added to it. And so as we bring on new people, I'm constantly being like, here, you're going to want this.
Oh my gosh, I love that. I want a copy of that. I feel like I need one of those. I always remember I was in Florida and they were discussing all the different terms for water. And you guys probably have this too, but like there's swamp and river and sewage. I'm like, oh my goodness, who remembers all of this? This is craziness.
Yes. It's probably got to be a nightmare for Rezo, I'm sure, trying to get it all standardized.
Yeah. I think standardization is good because there's no way we can keep up with all of that kind of stuff. But
no doubt.
And another thing that I love that you said is just leaning on others to grow. And like for affirmation, I feel like, especially starting out, you really want to be surrounded by positive people. And you're such a positive person yourself. So I can just imagine the light that you bring to others when they come to you now for affirmation in what they're doing.
Well, thank you. I try to be. My first boss that I had at Greater Nashville Realtors, he is still a mentor for me to this day. And we haven't really technically worked together in, gosh, probably well over 10 years, but he was just very positive and very giving and really just had a lot of belief and faith in me. And so I try to turn that around to help others, whether they're someone directly, that I might be mentoring, or even if they're in another department or even work for another company, anyone that I can help to like affirm them and encourage them, I'm happy to do it.
And you said something too about when you asked others, like when you were working on something and you asked others for their opinion or advice or feedback on something that you were doing, was there a time when you were like, okay, I got this, I don't need to, ask for somebody else's feedback on this? Or to this day, are you still leaning on others to kind of get that feedback and that collaboration? Or is it a little bit of both?
It actually is a little bit of both. Even, today, even when I'm working on something, I could pretty much tell like I've got a good grip and I understand it. But even just to have somebody else's perspective, just to make sure that I'm not missing something, or if I'm working on something and I understand it, that doesn't mean that you're going to understand it. And so I have to remember that when I'm preparing something, especially if I'm going to be presenting something, that I'm doing so in a way that I'm basically talking to someone like who's a newcomer, even if they're not. And so I'll still continue to run things by people. At Realtracs, we're really big about collaboration and working together as a collaborative team. So it's almost just like second nature at this point, whether I think I totally have it down or not, just to be like, hey, can you check this out for me? Just to make sure that I didn't miss something there.
Yeah, I think that especially in our careers, as I grew, I was constantly asking, like, is this right? Is this okay? Did I say the right thing? And then I think I was thrown into a position where I just, like, it was like a training or something, and I just had to do it. And I couldn't ask for anybody's permission. And I got all like high and mighty. And I was like, okay, well, I don't need anybody's help. Like, I've got this from here. And I was humbled very quickly. I'm like, okay, collaboration is good. I should probably ask for people's feedback, because even if we think we have it and we know the right answer, a lot of the times, to your point, we might not see it from somebody else's perspective.
Yeah. And I think that's just the growth. I think when you start out, you want, like you said, you want to know, is this right? And then after a while, innately that it is right, but still wanting to have someone else speak to what you're doing or just take a look at it just shows that you as a person are constantly wanting to improve and know that you can always improve. And so I think it's just that growth in yourself as a professional.
Yeah. Well, speaking of which, so you have been at Realtracs for almost 5 years, and you're the chief relationship officer. You're actually the first one that they've ever had. So just out of curiosity, what are your key responsibilities for that role?
Sure. So I have three major functions. One is that I oversee our team of trainers. They are the customer engagement team, and they're made up of our customer success coaches and then our customer happiness representatives. And they teach our, and that's truly what they are. They teach our classes at our office, and then around the Nashville region, they go to office visits to train on the product. And they just generally spread Realtracs happiness by making sure that our users are having a good experience with the product. And then I oversee our support team. And this is kind of like our help desk. Like, they are extremely knowledgeable and they're super helpful. And they respond to calls and tickets and emails and chats with people who, just need assistance with the product. And then I oversee all of our communications. And we handle some communications pieces in-house, but we also work with a really incredible outside team, Dalton, for communication strategy and messaging. So those are the big three things that I work. And then I'm a part of our leadership team, so I help collaborate on that team as well. And then just pick up whatever else anybody needs help with.
That's a lot. You wear a lot of hats there.
I do.
That's really impressive. Have you found that there were any hurdles, whether big or small, when starting to build out this role, since it was the first time that it has been at Realtracs?
Oh, yeah, for sure. I always joke and say that chief relationship officer is the best title I've ever had, because I have a whole background in communications and I love relationships. So this position is like second nature to me. But, being the first CRO, there's a lot of freedom in that role because I really get to kind of make it from scratch and make it my own. And I can really tailor it to meet the needs of whatever's happening at Realtracs. But then with all that freedom, there's also been plenty of moments when I'm just kind of like, what exactly am I supposed to be doing? I'm like, is this right? Like, is this what I'm supposed to do? I'll even go to my boss and be like, are there things I'm not doing that I'm supposed to be doing? And it's funny because he doesn't know, because we've never had this role before, And even the title of CRO, I think titles in general, for the most part, when you look at different companies, you might see someone that has the same title, but their actual job responsibilities are completely different, from what you're working on. And so there's a lot of freedom, which was great to create, but then sometimes just not being sure that I'm covering all the bases. It could be overwhelming at times.
Yeah, I feel like, I haven't been in your position, but I feel like creating your own role could be very exciting and stressful at the same time, for sure, because you're kind of paving your own way. And I'm sure it's hard to kind of check and balance yourself sometimes when doing that. But it sounds like you have a lot of really awesome teams that report to you. I mean, one has a happiness title in it. So that's got to be pretty rewarding.
It is. And, I think probably one of the greatest things about Realtracs, as an MLS that develops our own system in-house, this is really true. And we picked this up from our development team, but we really believe in failing fast and iterating always. And so, if something happens in my role, if it doesn't work out, we realize it really quickly and then we just rework it. So you really can't mess it up, which there's a lot of freedom in that too.
Yeah, that's really great. I think at the end of the day, we're all going to fail sometime or another. So if you try not to avoid it and just accept it and realize, okay, once we fail, we just have to pivot. And how are we going to pivot? I'm sure it makes you guys very nimble to be able to grow and learn, especially from feedback. And, everybody wants to make great products, but at the end of the day, nothing's perfect and you have to kind of fix it as you go along.
Exactly.
Well, that is great. And I know you said that you have a background in communications and relationships. And with that comes, I'm sure, so much creativity. Is there anything like any story or any moment throughout your time at Realtracs where you can say, like, man, I was super creative when, and this drove us to be where we are today?
Oh, goodness. Hmm. That's a great question. I'm trying to think if there's been like, if I'm trying to pinpoint one single moment.
Or just an overarching like idea towards creativity and change within the industry.
I can't, Lord, I can't think of a single like moment right at the second. Well, I can say, so I think in 2019, so about a year and a half after I came on at Realtracs, we went through a refresh of our brand. We like a whole kind of rebranding. And
Yeah.
so being able to be there, to be a part of that and to have the communication skills that I had, and I had just gone through a rebranding with Greater Nashville Realtors probably about 2 years before I left there. So I'd been through that process. I knew all the bits and pieces. And so I felt really good about being able to be there and help lead our team through the rebranding process and figuring out, what does the Realtracs brand look like? How do we want to be perceived? Technology can seem so standoffish. And so we wanted to make sure that we seemed approachable and, like your neighbor next door and helpful and friendly. And so being able to use those skills to help it guide us through that to where we are today, which is, I think the whole leadership team and the whole company would tell you that who we are as Realtracs today definitely was a part of coming through that process together.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I think that that just lends to your ability with, dealing with relationships and communication. Cause I know after being in the real estate industry, you have to work very methodically when you do stuff like that. I remember, at my past company, if we moved an icon, we had to make sure to communicate it because these are tools that agents are using every single day as a part of their business and their livelihood. And you want to make sure that, like you said, it's approachable, it's user friendly, and it's understood. So I'm sure there was so much communication involved in that kind of change.
Definitely. And anytime we make, a major change to the system or we release a new feature, making sure that we're communicating to our users to get their attention that there's something new. We historically don't send a lot of communication to our users just because we know that they're getting, 1,000 other emails a day from other products that they use or just their friends and family. And so we've been really intentional about only like sending an email to our users when there's something really big. And because of that, like our open rate is really great. And our users know they're like, if they see Realtracs in their email inbox and they're like, oh, something's happening. There's either a new feature or something's changing. There's big news. And so that's really been a very effective way to communicate with them.
That's great. Yeah. Especially making sure you capture their attention and making sure it's something that they want to read. Because if you over email, I know like me, I have one email that's just like 500 promotions of sales at stores that I shop at. And then if there's one email that comes through, I might miss it if it's important. So it sounds like you guys have created quite the cadence where when you email, they know it's something worth reading into and there's a change and to look out for it.
Absolutely.
That's great. Well, so the next kind of topic that I wanted to dive into is the reason that Renew was started. But Renew stands for Real Estate Network of Empowered Women, and we foster a sense of community for women that work in all areas of the real estate industry. And with that in mind, I just kind of wanted to get your take on, some subjects like female mentorship and empowerment. So can you talk a little bit about the value in mentorship for female professionals in real estate and what part it played in your journey throughout your career?
Yes, absolutely. Well, first, I just want to say that the emphasis that Renew places on empowering and equipping women in the real estate industry and how much you guys are promoting the value of mentorship, I find that so appealing as a woman who's in this industry. And I love what you're doing to set yourself apart. So just again, kudos for doing this and for, for bringing awareness to women in leadership and real estate. It's incredible. So thank you, Lauren, for being a part of this.
That's so sweet of you. I really appreciate it. It really was all started because of women like you. I was starting in my career and I was just, in account management and I wanted to grow. And I thought to myself, look at all of these women who have made it. And, you're a CRO and look how far you've come. And I think empowering other women to say, look, we did it and you can do it too. I'm just so thankful that you get to share your story.
Me too. So my journey, you don't have to look too far around in the real estate industry to see a lot of men. There's so many men. But I think that as we as a society as a whole, as we are changing and putting a spotlight on all the intelligence and creativity and vision that women are contributing to business in general, I think that the position of women in real estate is definitely growing. And, I mentioned when I began my career that I was very fortunate to have people around me who encouraged me and helped to instruct me. And it was just critical. And, 20 years later, I might have more confidence, but I still want all those people surrounding me to continue to be there. I'm really fortunate. One of the people who has mentored me my entire career and who I hold as a dear friend to this day is Christy Wilson. And she is this well-known, successful broker owner of a long-standing firm here in Nashville. And like the impact that she has made on my professional career is just immeasurable. She taught me about the industry. She directed me in growing as a business professional. She affirmed my skills. She encouraged me, and she got me to take risks when I probably wouldn't. And she also really helped me to become more philanthropic, which I just like. She really is like a total package of what you want in a mentor. And I feel extremely blessed to have been able to call her a mentor and friend. And so, no matter where you are in your journey, having a mentor only helps to make you better at your position and in your life.
Yeah, I think that's so important. And I love that she comes from the broker world because really at its core, Renew wants to create a community of women throughout all aspects of real estate. And a lot of the times, I found people kind of stay in their own lanes a little bit. And there's so much we can learn from people who work in prop tech, people who work in the broker world, people who work in MLS. So that's great to hear that she was one of your mentors. Is there any piece of advice that she's given you throughout your career that really has stuck?
Oh gosh, she's given me some. I'm like, what could I single out?
Not to put you on the spot.
I think for her, she really just encouraging me to take risks. Like I can't think of a single simple phrase, but and nothing super crazy, but just her saying to me, you can do this, step out there and do this. I think in one of your past episodes, Teresa Kinkinney I think it was her from Miami, who was saying, raise your hand, be willing to be bold. And Christy was a lot like that for me, take the risk, be willing to put yourself out there. And she's like, 9 times out of 10, what you're worrying about is not going to happen. And she's always right. It's 10 times out of 10 with her. So yeah.
Yeah, that was from the Miami episode. And it's kind of just been a theme that I've heard is just put yourself out there, raise your hand. And I feel like for a long time, women were kind of shy to speak up. And until we have those ladies in our life who say hey, raise your hand. What's the worst that can happen? And like you said, 9 times out of 10, nothing happens. And, there's that one time where you do, I know this podcast isn't about me, but it's a relevant story. One time I was doing a training, and I was really sick and I was really determined to get the training done and the presentation. I think I had walking pneumonia. It was something, it was something very serious. And I was in Florida and I fainted mid presentation. And that has always been my biggest fear. What if I get up there and I pass out? So I worried about that and worried about that. And the moment came and I fainted. And I woke up and people were fanning me off. Somebody brought me a grilled cheese. I literally stood back up and I finished the presentation. And then I went home and I think I slept for a week. But the point of that is, even if you stand up, even if you raise your hand, sometimes the worst will happen. But at the end of the day, I got a good story out of it. And
a grilled cheese.
Yeah, I got a grilled cheese. And you just have to keep going, because to your
Mhm.
earlier point, we're going to fail sometimes, and you still gotta take the chance. So
Yeah.
I love that she has, encouraged you to take risks and to raise your hand. I think that's wonderful.
Yes.
Well, so my next question for you is, less than 20% of all senior positions in real estate are held by women. What do you see as the biggest reason for that imbalance?
When you shared that stat with me, I was just like, I was astounded. I was like, wow, really? And, I think the reason it is that, though, is that I think that women have been overlooked. I think women weren't, I'm from the South, born and raised in the South, and I wasn't raised, to speak up or to raise my hand or to ask for the job or to share my opinion, but again, like I say, that I see that our whole world, not just real estate, but our world as a whole is changing. And so hopefully a year from now, 5 years from now, 10 years and on, that statistic will be different,
Yeah.
and it'll be more in favor of women, because I feel like we're finally entering a time when women are being recognized for their value and for their perspective, and so for too long, I feel like that even if someone thought a woman had the skills to do the job, we were overlooked in the fact that people thought, well, she might could do it, but she's not going to do it well, or she's not going to succeed, or she's not going to exceed expectations. And those times are changing, which is great. And it's incredible to see it happening, because more women are stepping forward and they are raising their hands and they're asking for the job, and they're getting the job, and they're performing at their highest and best. And, they're just proving over and over how exceptional women are and the value that they can bring.
Yeah, I think that we are entering into a new era of girl power. And I'm a huge Spice Girls fan. Many people know that, and I'm all for it. But I think, to your point, we work really hard, but we also come with a different perspective. We're creative and endearing and empathetic, and we, just everybody comes from different backgrounds, and women bring such a valuable proposition to the table that I think it's exciting. But to your point, when I first was looking to start Renew and I found that statistic, I was like, no, really? That's what it is? Because there's so many strong women in real estate. So I'm hoping over time that continues to grow.
I think it will, because I do think that men and even other women are, like you said, realizing that what people thought were, weaknesses, because we are empathetic or because we might have a softer opinion at times, what people thought were weaknesses. And now they're realizing how effective that those, things can be in a business world. And because finally that look is changing, women are getting, I think, a lot more opportunities. And I don't think they're messing those opportunities up. I think they're taking them and they're running with them.
I agree. I think that people are giving women more opportunities, and women are just knocking it out of the park. So it's really exciting to see. But I kind of have a question. I know I had a question on advice for you that I sent over, but I asked a question to Emily Chenevier on the last podcast, and I just really think it's a great question. It kind of goes in line with advice, but similar question. If you could go back in time to when you were a kid and give yourself a piece of advice, knowing what you know now, what kind of advice would you give to you or young girls who are also looking to get into real estate or just get into the professional world at all?
Oh gosh, I would 100% go back and tell myself and all of my friends around me, you are good enough and you are worthy and you have everything you need. Because I think growing up,
got goosebumps.
Growing up where I did, and just in the time that I did, no one ever told you were good enough. Not really, And so knowing that, feeling like you're not good enough, you hold yourself back from so many things. You don't, like we were saying, raise your hand and step up to do things. And so I think just empowering the younger versions of ourselves. And when I say younger, I mean all the way into our 20s and 30s, to really let them know you are good enough. You don't have to be any better for anybody else. You're good enough. You have plenty of worth and plenty of value, and you've got a lot to offer the world. And I think, if we told my son's 17 now, but I've tried to tell him every day, you are good, you are worthy, you're kind, and you have everything you need, because I want him to never doubt that. And I think that would be what I would tell myself and every other young little girl around me. I would look at my best friend on the playground and be like, you're good and you're worthy and you got enough, that would be it.
That That's like the type of thing that like you can't, I mean, that honestly have goosebumps. Like I want to wake up every morning and tell myself that. And I wish I could tell a younger version of myself that. But at the end of the day, it's not too late and we can continue to
Right.
tell ourselves that. And one thing I've always tried to live by, and this didn't really happen until later in my life, you know, like you, when I was younger, I didn't raise my hand. I didn't take the chances. I was shy. I was kind of like the drama nerd, you know, and I wasn't confident in myself. And now later in life, I've realized it's okay to be uniquely you. And to your
Absolutely.
point, you have everything you need. And we, for so long as a society, I feel like all tried to blend and be similar to one another, especially with like social media and stuff. Everybody's just trying to copy the next thing. And I just want to go back in time and tell myself and all my friends what you just said. You're good, you are kind, and you have everything you need. And it's okay to be uniquely you.
Absolutely. And I think as we sit here and talk about mentorship, we can do that. As we look at the young women who are coming up in real estate around us, or even sometimes to our colleagues, we can still look at them and encourage them in that way because, even if you know today that you're good and kind and worthy, tomorrow you might doubt it a little bit. So it's never a bad time just to remind someone of that.
Yeah, I think like I'm getting so moved just by talking about this because you said like into your 20s and 30s. And I have a lot of, colleagues that fit into that realm. And it wakes me up too. Like we should be in meetings when somebody brings up an idea, or just like if you have one-on-ones, remind them like you're great at your job, you're good at
Yes.
what you do, and you're worthy of this position. So thank you for sharing that. I think that's
Yeah.
wonderful.
Thanks for asking. Glad to share that.
Yeah. So, okay, going into some industry insights, just a couple questions for you on kind of where we think real estate is headed. There's a lot of changes going on within the industry for the good, and technology is growing. And I know you guys are a tech company, so I'm sure you have so many changes and exciting things happening. But just out of curiosity, what is the greatest challenge facing MLS organizations in the current real estate climate, do you think?
I think that it's being relevant. Honestly, I think,
Yeah.
working for an MLS, I can argue every day how we are relevant, but showcasing that relevance to our users and our potential users, like that's a different challenge altogether. And just like, we were saying, how with so many changes in the industry, changes to how business is being done, thinking that people will continue to rely on you as a business tool just because they have in the past, that's not enough to keep a business going forward, not the way change happens today. And so I really think that it's imperative that MLSs, I mean, really and truly, probably every business, but speaking from the MLS world, that they kind of audit how they're serving their customers currently and what improvements and steps they can take to serve their customers in new and better ways going forward, because changes are coming and they probably are for the best. Most likely, yeah, they will be, but just knowing how you still fit into that world and not to just sit there and think that what you've always done is going to get you by for the rest of time. You've really got to be willing to change and continue to find relevance.
Yeah, I think that that's so important, especially to agents, because agents have so many tools at their
Yes.
disposal in data, and you want to make sure that you continue to be top of mind to them. And I think that it puts you guys in a really unique position because you do focus so much on technology. So do you think that that helps you stay connected with your agents, being able to provide kind of all that technology to them?
Yes, I mean, we really do, and for a long time in the real estate world as a whole, especially the larger brokerages, they wanted to handle all of their own technology. They didn't want the MLS stepping on their toes. They just wanted they were like, just give us the data. And now that's really changing here. And certainly brokerages, big and small, continue to offer their agents, certain forms of technology and tools. But as, they're looking at, the cost that they're spending and, well, I could offer this or I could offer this. Having us provide some of that technology for them frees them up to do other things and to continue to do them well and better. And it also helps us to provide opportunities for maybe smaller companies that don't have the money to spend on, certain vendors and tools and firms that some of the other ones do. So it really helps us just to really stay engaged at all different levels across the industry.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point because a lot of the times, there's so many products that you're competing against. But when it is provided by the MLS, because you guys do provide a lot of tools, and, same with some other
Mhm.
MLSs, you're giving, whether it's more of a budget to the brokerage, say, hey,
Mhm.
look, we're giving this to you as a member benefit. We're going to alleviate that part of your budget. And then maybe they can bring something else on board, or take care of their agents in another way. So I think it really does set you apart and adds so much value to your members. And also, I feel like, and I don't know if you agree, but it makes you guys stay accountable to keeping up with the technology and making sure that you're always providing the new and innovative things to your members.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It keeps us accountable. And because we don't want to just be that tired old MLS. It's funny, every once in a while we'll get a user who says they wish that they could just have their MLS book back. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like I've been in this industry for over 20 years and I've never seen an MLS book. So I cannot imagine, going back that far. But, we just really want to continue just to provide value and
Yeah.
relevance to our users and staying on top of that.
Yeah, sometimes people just don't want change, and that's
No.
okay. I went to an office meeting one time, and they were still just like printing out a ton of papers and, doing everything manually in a bunch of books. And I like felt so overwhelmed. I
Oh,
was
I'm
like,
sure.
can't somebody come and scan all of this into a database for you? Like, how do you keep track of all this stuff?
That sounds like a
Um,
nightmare.
there's the same office. I was supposed to do a presentation on a new product, and I brought my computer and an HDMI cord only. They had one of those like tube TVs that only
Yeah.
took the AV inputs. And I
Oh,
was so stressed out. I was like, the guy was like, do you think you can like just cast it onto the TV? I was like, probably not.
yeah, our customer happiness reps, they're similar. They have an entire little tech toolbox that they all carry around with them because we cover all, of Middle Tennessee, parts of Kentucky, Alabama, Georgia. And so sometimes you're in a firm that's like walking into an Apple store, and sometimes they roll into an office that's just somebody's house. And like you said, it's a tube TV, and they just got to be ready under any
Yeah.
circumstance.
And hey, there's nothing wrong with it. Whatever gets the business done. If that's how you're comfortable, you got to do what you got to
Yep.
do. But definitely, I am with you on your happiness team. You have to be prepared for the whole gamut of what you can run into. But my last question for you on the industry insights: any wild predictions for real estate in 2023?
Oh, I always seem to stink at predictions about stuff.
Me
But what I
too.
would say, so it's wild that I'm even sharing what I think one would be. But my wild
I'll
prediction,
cherish this forever.
yes, is that I think that the industry is going to continue to see more partnerships and mergers.
Yeah.
With the MLS industry as a whole, it has shrunk a lot over the past few years as more MLSs try to just conjoin and work together to serve customers better. And, with the changes to the market and new technology combined with, some of the things that are happening legally in this industry, I just think more companies and MLSs will begin to do work together to best serve their customers. It's going to be a time of putting aside agendas and egos and just really coming together to do what's best for the customer.
I don't think that's such wild of a prediction. I think that's a good prediction, especially going back to what you said and just staying relevant and providing value. A lot of these companies are buying up tech and,
Yes.
merging to share data, and it's all for the good of the customer and the agent. So I'm with you. I agree with your prediction.
I hope so. I hope it continues.
Well, Julie, thank you so much. I really do want to thank you again for agreeing to be a guest on the Renew podcast. Before we go, I want to do two things.
Sure.
First, if you want to share any exciting news, anything coming up at Realtracs that you want people to know about.
Oh gosh, we always have things going on at Realtracs. It's never a dull moment over there. We're expanding our markets right now, and so we're just bringing in new users, which is really fun. And so that's big news. And then we're just releasing some new features inside our product as well. We've really been working on, we call 2023 the year of analytics for Realtracs. Last year was the year of search, and we made so many changes to our search function. And we finally have completed that project. And now we're just working on analytics to make sure that we give our users the best reports on showings and how well their listings are performing, and that they've got, stats about the market that are accurate and up to date and easily accessible and usable to them. So that's what we're working on at Realtracs.
Sounds like a lot of really exciting things.
It is. It's fun times.
Yeah. Okay. Well, the second question I have for you is your second pop quiz. So I know you live in Nashville, and I'm a huge country music fan. So your pop quiz is Miranda Lambert or Carrie Underwood?
Miranda Lambert.
Me too. I love Miranda Lambert.
I do too. I think there's both super talented artists, obviously. But there's something about Miranda Lambert and the way that she writes so much of her music and how she tells her stories and relates to, her listeners through the songs that she tells or sings and the stories that she tells in those. I love her.
Me too. I think she's really inspirational, and she's another one where she's just uniquely Miranda Lambert. I think one of my favorite songs of hers is All Kinds of Kinds, and it kind of goes to that same motto. This has been episode number 3. Thank you again, Julie, for being on the Renew podcast presented by RentSpree. I hope that you've enjoyed this conversation. As a reminder, you can visit our website, rentspree.com/renew, to learn more about joining our initiative. And please make sure to subscribe to the Renew podcast on whichever pod platform you use. Until next time, thank you guys.